How's it going, everyone, and welcome to another video. As a refresher, we had the major start last week. If you guys aren't aware, due to the pandemic, we've had to basically expand the international major that was supposed to happen for the fall split into 4 regional events, where every single regional is going to be worth double points towards their world championship run, I guess is the best way to explain it. So basically a makeup regional major rather than an international major with all the players and all the teams at one place. So that part kind of stinks because there is no international competition that we still have yet to see since Madrid for the Season 8 World Championship, and we missed out on Dallas. But we do get to see all of these teams, whether they are the NA and EU kind of more in the forefront or OCE in South America, they get kind of pushed to the side on the main channel. So everything was streamed on the twitch.tv/Rocket League main broadcast. The OCE Major is already done. Oceania, we will go through in fruition from start to finish. And then we will talk about the 8 teams that are moving in to the finals of the playoff bracket, I guess is the best way to explain it, for Europe, North America, and South America. We'll do them in order in which they'll appear this weekend, as it starts up again on Friday with South America. Saturday is Europe. I did say that wrong in my last video that I covered on this. Normally, North America used to play RLCS on Saturdays, but because of the time zone starts, both being at 11 Eastern for South America and Europe, they are doing those back-to-back, which makes sense. So North America is on Sundays. So first things first, we're going to jump straight into the OCE Major to kind of explain. We've got 16 teams. Canberra Havoc, Cowabunga, Cringe Society, Dire Wolves, Fury, Gaming Gamers, Good and Useful, Ground Zero Gaming, Hazard Esports, Mind Freak, Renegades, Skyfire, Solicit, Southern Stars, Ferox, and Vort Central. I put out a video saying the top 5 teams most likely to win, and those top 5 teams were the ones that performed the best. If you take a look at the Swiss stage, this is where teams are trying to play against other teams with similar records. So 1-0 plays 1-0, 2-0 plays 2-0, etc., until you either get 3 wins and progress through, or 3 losses and you end up getting eliminated. The 8 teams that ended up progressing through were Renegades, Cringe Society, Ground Zero, Canberra Havoc, Mind Freak, Vort, Cowabunga, and Hazard. The big surprise here was Gaming Gamers did not make it. They had some pretty tough matches that they had to go through, but ultimately should have been able to close it out in their last and 5th and final game, but it does go to the distance to 5, and they end up losing in that last one. But other than that, pretty much as expected. I do have expectations of Fury performing a little bit better. Not sure what's been going on with that team since the last time I watched them. But other than that, everything else, Renegades, Cringe, Ground Zero, Mind Freak, those are all pretty good shouts. Gaming Gamers was kind of my 5th, maybe iffy pick. But this was kind of the start of OCE really getting some foundation of saying it is more than just the top 2 teams. There is actually some depth to them now. We then jump into the playoffs, where it is Renegades. They 3-0 Cowabunga, no issues there. Mind Freak over Canberra Havoc. We always call them Cranberry Havoc, but Mind Freak had a pretty good win, and this is where Mind Freak started to look really good. Cringe Society ends up beating their first round, and Ground Zero beats their first round in a sweep as well. And this is what I mean about the depth that is going to be happening in OCE. You can see there's a clear top 4 in the region in Renegades, Mind Freak, Cringe Society, and Ground Zero. No one else really has a chance. But between these 4, there's a little bit more parity. We go into the first semifinal match, where it is Renegades versus Mind Freak. And Mind Freak actually starts off really, really well with a 3-0. And Renegades almost looks like they're going to reverse sweep it until it gets to the 7th and final game. And it ends up being a 1-0 victory for Mind Freak. Out of all the matches that I did watch that weekend, and I did watch both semifinals and the grand final, Renegades, if they would have won this, would have won the whole thing. And if Mind Freak would have won this, they won the whole thing. So it definitely felt like it was between Renegades or Mind Freak to win the entire event. We'll talk about that in a bit here. If we look at the Cringe Society and Ground Zero game, Cringe Society does get the first game, but then after that, it is smooth sailing for Ground Zero. Game 2 was an OT with 34 seconds, but after that, 3-0, 2-0, and then 2-1. So Ground Zero asserting their dominance and end up making it through. Many would argue that Renegades and Cringe Society, your 1 and 2 seeds, should have been in the grand finals as always, but it is good to see, again, that parity in the OCE region, and these double points being made up does make a big difference. We then get into the grand final, and you can see a big contrast in the level of play that was performing. Mind Freak definitely was the team to beat that day, looking very, very good. Again, think Renegades probably would have also won this event if they would have progressed through instead of Mind Freak, but again, Mind Freak just looked like the better team. Ground Zero put up a fight towards the end, where they ended up getting an overtime win in 4 minutes in game number 4, and then in game number 5, it was roughly a 3-minute overtime, but Mind Freak won that one, closing out the series 4-1. So pretty convincing victories here from Mind Freak, and congrats to them. That is going to help them up a lot in the standings. It helps them out so much, in fact, That actually puts them in first place overall at 1,252 points, where Cringe Society is at 1,251. So you're talking they are going from tied for essentially third, fourth, all the way up into first place. That is the effect of a major. Those double points really mean a lot. And when we talk about there being 3 of them towards the end of the season, when we get into the World Championships, this stuff is going to have a pretty big impact. Next up, we got the beginning of the South America major, or regional major, I guess if you want to call it. I'm not going to read through all the teams just because it was super tedious now that I think about it. If we take a look at the Swiss stage results, you should be able to see the results of all the teams that ended up qualifying through. 3 Sins, True Neutral, L. Evans, Noble, PDHM, No Mercy, Era, and Atypical. All of these are as expected. People talked about Third Eye was going to go 3. So this is the results to a T. There's really no parity here in the sense of upsets or anything like that. This went as expected. The biggest surprise was a team by the name of Atypical that had some pretty major upsets. The number one being in that early round, in round 2, where they beat L. Evans. L. Evans is supposed to be like the most dominant team and have a stellar performance. Case in point, even though they lose that and go 3-1, they have a better game differential than the teams that went 3-0. So again, I do think that L. Evans is a team that most people are kind of assuming is going to win, but I think the other team that a lot of people need to pay attention to is Noble. Noble is the team that has a lot of veteran talent. If you guys haven't watched my video on their top 5 most likely to win, I do mention this team quite a bit. But again, it's going to be an interesting one if we take a look at the final playoff bracket. True Neutral versus Atypical, I think, is a really good matchup initially. For Atypical, where playstyle-wise, they might be able to handle it, but True Neutral is a team that I don't think is going to falter to this kind of underdog team. They should be able to create that separation and give themselves a victory. Noble versus PDHM. PDHM was another team that put up a pretty good fight. Noble should take that. 3 Sins versus Era. 3 Sins should wipe the floor with Era. And L. Evans versus No Mercy. That one I think is actually the closest of the 4 in that quarterfinal. That one will most likely go the distance. I think it's going to be up to whatever team starts out hot. Whatever team gets that first initial win is going to really put themselves at a big advantage. This one could be a back and forth series. Jumping into the European Major, again, top 8 teams progress through into the playoffs. We've got Team BDS, Top Lokes, Vitality, Galaxy Racer, Triple Trouble, Endpoint, Giants, and Barcelona. Overall, this one is as expected, but some frustrating things. Again, Oxygen. They are a team that you have expectations of them winning, but they had some pretty tough fights across the board. You look at all their matches, and I think this was the hardest video that I had to make for like top 5 teams of most likely to win. I had a lot of teams in my kind of wild card spot or my dark horse spot. I also cut out a lot of footage in that video where I went on a tangent about how out of these 16 teams, realistically speaking, a lot of things can happen from teams like Fadeaway and Solary and Magnifico and Barrage. Barrage kind of shot themselves in the foot. I talked about this in my video yesterday, how they decided to play with a sub because Oli and his situation. If you don't know what I'm talking about, make sure you guys go check out that video in full detail yesterday about the whole situation there, about benching him and whatnot. But Oxygen, again, even though they make top 16 by default, fail to win the matches that they should. I think they're a better team than someone like Endpoint and Barcelona, but they continue to drop these matches. And that's not to discredit Barcelona or Endpoint by any means, both very solid rosters. But Oxygen kind of fought through the gauntlet. I think the same thing could be said about Fadeaway against Guild, Top Lokes, Oxygen, Dig, Giant. I mean, they had a really rough fight too. The biggest surprise, I think, came from the very beginning, where Giants ended up dropping to Triple Trouble. I had the expectation that Giants should have been 3-1 at the absolute worst, but credit to Triple Trouble. Their only loss comes to BDS with wins over Guild, Endpoint, and Giants. Giants obviously being that big one, so congrats to them. Endpoint would normally be in that 3-2 position. But Giants losing to Triple Trouble and then getting the win over Fadeaway. Giants just shows that they're still a very solid team. But the only ones that I've had kind of this back and forth on is Guild and Barcelona. Both teams that I consider kind of like 5-6 in the region for varying results. Barcelona this time shows that they are the better team and win the head-to-head, so we'll have to move them up in the rankings. Looking at the playoff bracket, Barcelona versus BDS. I think BDS should be able to take that one pretty easy. Galaxy Racer versus Triple Trouble. Galaxy Racer should win, I think, as a team. Cohesively, they are better and more refined, but Triple Trouble is kind of that weird anomaly of a team. They're tough to get a grasp on and can cause some trouble. So Galaxy Racer, I think this is a good chance for them to bump forward and really get some big points. They've shown that they can compete against the best of the best and have beaten the likes of teams like Oxygen and Vitality and stuff on their path to the very top. They were my true dark horse pick, and a part of the reason why is because I got to cast them throughout the grid every single week when they were the monkeys. Super happy for them kind of being picked up and have progressed quite well since like week 3, week 4 with the addition of Arju. Top Looks Endpoint should be a fun one. Top Looks should win that one, but Endpoint has shown if Metznaar is popping that they can beat anybody. And then Vitality and Giants. Giants dropping low, I think, makes this one a really rough fight for both of these teams. Ultimately, whoever can control the pace of that game is going to get the victory. Vitality should win it, but with it only being a single elimination, Vitality's not going to have that extra time to kind of warm up and get ready. They've got to come out of the gates flying, and we'll see how that plays. Last but not least, we jump into North America. North America's top 8 out of the 16. Energy, G2, Space Station Gaming, Alpine, Kansas City Pioneers, Envy, Rogue, and the Peeps. This one pretty much went as expected. Some things to note. Number 1, Sonics does have Shock back in the roster. They ended up beating both Peeps and Kansas City Pioneers. That was a pretty big surprise. United right out the gate ends up beating Envy. That was pretty crazy. Tristan looks like he's become a fantastic addition for that team and added a different dynamic, so excited to see them trending in direction. Would have liked to see a little bit more of a fight from Pittsburgh Knights. Unfortunately, their only victory came to Ghost, but Kansas City Pioneers, Peeps, and Alpine, all very solid teams. I think that could also be another good note. Alpine looked really good last weekend as well with wins over PK, Space Station, and United. Their loss does come to G2, so even though they aren't quite in that top echelon, they still are beating some of the teams below them, which is what you want to see. You don't want to have teams kind of play down to their competition. This has been issues with like version 1 in the past as well as XSET, so exciting to see. XSET also had some surprising wins over Rogue and Peeps. Peeps just had a really rough day, but I say that, and they're still able to make it in, so congrats to Peeps going neutral in their game differential and closing it out over a strong-looking United. The difficulty for the Peeps, though, is just beginning because as we jump into the playoffs, their first match is up against NRG, the best-looking team, in my opinion, in that top 16. Arguments for G2 as well. But NRG versus Peeps in the first round, NRG should be able to beat Peeps. I think they're just a better team through and through from start to finish, talent-wise as well as positional play. Envy versus Alpine should be an exciting one because this is kind of another super heavy offense versus super heavy defense. I think Envy is built as well to beat a team like Alpine. I think Alpine is just a lesser version of Kansas City Pioneers at the moment, so Alpine should have a tough fight against Envy. Curious to see if this helps refine them. G2 versus Rogue. G2 probably won't even blink. When it comes to Rogue, they should be able to wipe the floor with them. And then Space Station versus Kansas City Pioneers. I'm actually really excited for that match. This to me is either Kansas City Pioneers proving that they are a top 4 team, and for Space Station showing that they are bouncing back. They will be in a team house again for this one, so that should be exciting. So really awesome matches going down this weekend. That is going to wrap it up for the recap this week. If you guys have any questions, comments, concerns, drop those down below. I will be doing watch parties for all these events except for South America on Friday. On Friday, I will be taking the complete day off so I can get moved into my new apartment, which I'm looking forward to greatly. And I got a lot of stuff to pack, so I'm taking the full day off. I will not watch South America, but on Saturday and Sunday, you can have expectations that over at twitch.tv/Lawler, link can be found in the description down below. I will be watching these matches in full as we find out who the best teams are in the region for the major, which should be pretty exciting. But that's going to wrap it up for me today. Hope you guys have a great rest of your day. If you enjoyed the video, thumbs up. If you guys enjoy the content, subscribe, turn on notifications, all that fun stuff, and we'll catch you guys next time. Peace.